There is a quiet shame that comes with being judged for habits even you do not fully understand. You talk through a problem out loud, then stop suddenly, as if someone caught you doing something wrong. You stay awake at 2 in the morning, not because you are careless, but because your mind finally has silence to breathe. Your desk looks chaotic. Your thoughts are moving too fast. And someone calls you scattered before they ask what you are building inside that noise. And after hearing it long enough, you may start believing them. Maybe you are messy. Maybe you are undisciplined. Maybe your mind really is too much. But what if they only called it strange because they saw the habit, not the intelligence underneath it? What if the part of you that seemed hardest to explain was not the broken part at all, but the part that needed more room than the world usually gives? This video is not about pretending every habit is healthy. It is about the hidden psychology behind behaviors that often show up in highly intelligent people. Habit 1. Talking through problems out loud. You may pace around your room, rehearse a conversation, argue with your own thoughts, and suddenly hear the answer more clearly once it leaves your mouth. From the outside, this can look odd, but sometimes speaking your thoughts out loud is not a sign that your mind is scattered. It is how your mind turns noise into structure. When too many ideas are moving at once, keeping everything silent can feel like organizing a storm with your hands. But when you give those thoughts words, something changes. The weak part of the argument becomes easier to hear. The contradiction reveals itself. The next step becomes less blurry. You are not talking to yourself because your mind is empty. You may be talking to yourself because your mind is too active to stay locked inside. You are not losing your mind. You are organizing it out loud. Habit 2. Your mind wakes up when the world gets quiet. You may feel mentally dull during the day, then strangely alive at night. When the messages stop, the roles fall away, and no one is asking you to respond, your thoughts finally begin to open. People may call this poor discipline, but sometimes the night feels powerful because it is the only time your mind is not being interrupted by everyone else's needs. It is the one stretch where the world stops entering your head without permission. In that silence, an idea you could not reach all afternoon finally rises. A feeling you kept pushing aside becomes clear enough to name. A problem that looked tangled begins to loosen. This does not mean every late night is healthy, but it may explain why quiet hours feel less like wasted time and more like a room your mind has been waiting to enter. Maybe the night is not where your discipline disappears. Maybe it is where your mind finally gets a room without interruptions. These habits may feel familiar, but stay with me, because later ones are often judged before they are understood. The first habits happened in private, where your mind could speak, wander, and breathe without being watched. But a deep mind does not only reveal itself in the hours when no one is around. It also leaves fingerprints in the spaces you live in, and in the moments when your attention seems to disappear. Habit 3. Your space looks messy, but your mind has its own map. Your desk may have papers stacked in a way that makes no sense to anyone else. Your room may look unfinished, even though you know exactly where the important things are. And somewhere along the way, someone may have judged that clutter as proof of a careless mind. And sometimes, yes, disorder can make life harder. But not every messy space comes from laziness. Sometimes, it comes from attention being spent somewhere deeper. Your mind may be holding a project, a question, a memory, or a problem that feels more urgent than making the room look perfect. To someone else, it is chaos. To you, it may be an imperfect map. The world often worships visible order because it is easy to measure. But an intelligent mind may not always organize for appearance. It organizes for use. Your space may look unfinished because your attention was busy finishing something deeper. Habit 4. You disappear into thought during ordinary moments. You may be sitting with someone, nodding, physically present, and suddenly your mind follows a door only it can see. A sentence reminds you of a problem. A sound pulls up a memory. A small detail opens a chain of possibilities. And before you realize it, you are somewhere else inside yourself. People may call this distracted. They may ask if you are even listening. And the guilt can come quickly because you did not mean to leave the moment. But sometimes, a highly active mind does not wait for permission before it starts connecting things. It solves in the background. It imagines futures. It links ideas that seemed unrelated a few seconds earlier. You are not always disappearing because you do not care. Sometimes, your mind simply found a pattern and followed it before the rest of you could explain where it went. You did not leave the room. Part of you just found a faster one. If one of these first habits feels uncomfortably familiar, comment the number that describes you most. I want to know which one made you feel seen. But strange habits do not stay private forever. The misunderstanding becomes harder to hide once your inner world has to deal with people. Because the habits that help you think can also make you look distant to people who only measure connection by constant availability. Habit 5. You need solitude, but not because you hate people. You may care deeply about people and still feel relieved when plans are canceled. You may enjoy a meaningful conversation and still need hours afterward where no one asks anything from you. You may love someone and still crave a quiet room where you can return to yourself. From the outside, this can look cold. People may call you distant, hard to reach, or too private. But solitude is not always loneliness. Loneliness is the ache of wanting connection and not having it. Solitude is the choice to be alone because your own inner world is not empty. For some intelligent people, the mind is already full of stimulation. Too much noise, small talk, and emotional signal, and the system starts to overload. So you choose fewer conversations, not because you feel nothing, but because you want the conversations you do choose to mean something. You are not rejecting people. You are protecting the part of you that still knows how to connect deeply when it is not exhausted. Solitude is not the absence of people. It is the presence of yourself. Habit 6. Your humor or thoughts arrive faster than people can catch. You may make a quiet joke and watch it fall flat. You may say something layered or ironic, then realize everyone heard only the surface. You may explain an idea and notice you skipped 3 steps because inside your mind, they happened almost instantly. This can feel strange, not because you are trying to be confusing, but because your thoughts sometimes connect faster than your words can translate them. Your mind may hold the literal meaning, the hidden meaning, and the emotional timing all at once. That is why your humor may not always land. That is why your ideas may need more context than you expect. The social cost is that you may start simplifying yourself before other people ask you to. You make the joke safer. You make the idea smaller. You hide the strange connection because explaining it feels like too much work. But a mind that makes unusual connections is not broken. It may simply be moving through more layers than the room is prepared to follow. The joke did not fail. It just arrived from somewhere the room had not caught up to yet. Until now, these habits may have carried a strange kind of beauty. But the next ones are harder to romanticize because they are the ones that actually cost you peace. This is where the strange habits stop feeling interesting and start feeling expensive. Habit 7. You overthink because your mind sees too many outcomes. People may tell you to stop thinking so much, as if you could simply close one door inside your head and be done. But your mind does not always work that way. It sees the possible reaction, then the reaction after that, then the thing someone might not say, then the meaning behind it. A simple message can become 5 possible interpretations. A decision can become a hallway of consequences. A conversation from 3 days ago can return at night with new evidence you did not notice before. From the outside, this looks excessive. But sometimes, overthinking is what happens when pattern recognition has no off switch. Your mind is trying to protect you from mistakes, rejection, regret, and blind spots. The problem is that protection can become a prison. A powerful mind needs peace. Real mental strength is not forcing yourself to stop thinking. It is learning when a thought has served its purpose and when it is only asking for your life again. Your mind is not broken for seeing 5 outcomes. It is tired from guarding all 5 at once. Habit 8. You procrastinate because your standards are heavier than your energy. People may see the delay and call it laziness. They may not see the pressure behind it. You know the version you want to create. You can feel how good it could be. You can imagine the cleaner sentence, the stronger idea, the better result that finally matches what you see in your head. And because you see that ideal so clearly, starting can feel painful. The first attempt looks too small. The unfinished version feels almost embarrassing. So you wait. You refine internally. You tell yourself you need more clarity, more time, more readiness. But sometimes, the door does not open through readiness. It opens through movement. The same mind that freezes before beginning can create remarkable work once it finally starts. The challenge is not that you do not care. The challenge is that you care so much the first imperfect step feels like a threat. You did not fear starting. You feared beginning badly in front of the version of you that already knows better. The final two habits show how a deeply intelligent mind chooses differently, which can confuse people who only judge what they can see. Habit 9. You forget small things because your mind saves energy for bigger patterns. You may forget why you walked into a room, forget to reply to a message, forget where you placed something you were just holding, and people may tease you for it. They may call you absent-minded, scattered, or careless. Sometimes, ordinary forgetfulness is just ordinary forgetfulness. But in some people, the mind is not failing. It is prioritizing. When your attention is absorbed by larger questions, emotional patterns, or unfinished problems, smaller details can slip out of focus. It is not that they do not matter at all. It is that your mental bandwidth is already occupied by something heavier. You may forget where the keys are, but remember the exact sentence someone said months ago because it revealed a pattern. That is the difference. Some minds remember information. Other minds remember meaning. Habit 10. You question rules everyone else accepts. You do not always reject rules just to be rebellious. You simply cannot absorb a belief, tradition, or expectation without asking why it exists. Who benefits from it? What does it protect? Is it still true, or just familiar? This can make people call you difficult. But the person who asks why often finds the better answer. You are not being difficult. You were the only one still asking if the rule ever made sense. And this is where all 10 habits come together. The world has a habit of naming things before it understands them. It hears you talking through your thoughts and calls it strange. It sees the late nights, the messy space, the moments when your attention disappears, and decides you must be careless, undisciplined, or rude. It watches you choose solitude and assumes coldness. It hears the connections you make too quickly and calls them confusing. It sees your overthinking, hesitation, forgotten details, and questions, then turns them into labels you were never meant to carry. And after hearing those labels for long enough, something in you can start to believe them. You begin carrying the quiet suspicion that maybe your mind moves too much, feels too scattered, asks too many questions, and needs more understanding than most people are willing to give. But those labels are not always truth. Sometimes, they are just the limit of someone else's perception. These habits are not always evidence that something is wrong with you. They may be fingerprints of a mind that notices more, connects more, and refuses to live only on the surface. That does not make the habits painless, and it does not mean they never need direction. But it does mean shame is not the only way to understand them. A mind like this may look inconsistent outside, but inside, it is often trying to protect attention for what feels most meaningful. The labels were never wrong about what they saw. They were only wrong about what it meant. If this video gave language to a habit you used to judge in yourself, comment which number felt the most accurate. And remember this, the habits you were taught to hide may not be proof that your mind is broken. They may be quiet evidence that your mind was never built to live on the surface. If this helped you understand yourself a little better, subscribe to this channel for more videos about mental strength, hidden psychology, self-awareness, and the parts of your mind most people never take the time to understand.